welcome to First Things First. I'm Jenna Wolfe. That's the Hall of Famer, Cris Carter. This right here is Nick Wright. Boy, the NBA season may be over, but the NBA storylines are keeping us very entertained. It turns out the Warriors do have a long-term plan for D'Angelo Russell, and the Lakers are big favorites to win the title. But the biggest story this morning is the biggest decision for one, Kawhi Leonard. Where will the Finals MVP play next season? The Lakers and Clippers are front-runners out west. They have both completed their meetings with Kawhi. Now the Raptors will reportedly get their chance to do the same. So which team has the edge? Our own Cris Carter had the inside track yesterday, tweeting this. Kawhi update. I've just been informed Kawhi has not made a decision, and to think the Lakers are ahead of the Clippers or the Raptors would be wrong. See, I hope I did your voice justice. What's the best option for Kawhi?
You have some better other Cris Carter or CC voices you do and everything.
That one wasn't one of them?
But that's cool. This is where I think to try to understand Kawhi, it's difficult. But let's just try to understand the whole process leading up to where we are today, July the 3rd. Kawhi was not happy with the medical advice that he got in San Antonio after going back and forth with them as far as was he able to play. He said he wasn't healthy enough to play. He demanded a trade. And when he did that, he demanded being traded to the Los Angeles Lakers. They denied him being traded there. So then he said, I'll go to the Clippers. I'll go to L.A. I'll play for the Clippers. I don't need to play with superstars. So now everyone has developed this opinion that Kawhi didn't want to play with players that weren't good. And no, it's been totally the opposite because Kawhi, number one, wants to improve on his game. And number two, he wants to compete for championships. He's got two, and he'd like to get a whole bunch more before he retires. But ultimately, like a lot of people, where do you want to work? So right now, I'm just going to tell you, this process started on Sunday night. And they have only been into this for less than 48 hours. And along the way, he was trying to go back to Los Angeles to play basketball, and that could have been either with the Lakers or with the Clippers. But the experience that just happened the last 2 months would change everything. It would change any other athlete's life. When you have the type of experience that he had with that team in Toronto, with the coaching staff, with the medical staff, with those fans, what he did to Philadelphia, what he did to Giannis and the Bucks, and ultimately to dethrone the Golden State Warriors, that experience would change you. So right now, he is going through a very, very tough decision. What I think is best for Kawhi is that he signs with the Lakers because it should be about multiple championships. Can he win a championship in L.A. with the Clippers? Yes, he could. It's going to be awful difficult with LeBron and AD there. And Kawhi realizes that ultimately, you want to play with good players, and he wanted to come to the Lakers even if LeBron wasn't there. And in trying to team up with Anthony Davis, that's something very, very intriguing. He doesn't think that the Toronto thing, how long can they sustain that? You know, how long are they going to be able to bring those guys back? Is it a one-year deal? And then next year he decides to go somewhere else? If I'm Kawhi Leonard, I decide to go to the Los Angeles Lakers because based on what I'm hearing, he wants to win multiple championships, and he's always wanted to go back home to Southern California.
Real quick, before I give my opinion on this, you had said Sunday on Twitter, don't expect a decision anytime soon. We talked earlier this week. You said you thought it could potentially bleed to the end of this week. Now, tomorrow is a holiday. The July 5th is Kawhi's uncle's birthday, correct?
Yes.
And so do you think that we could potentially get a decision today before the 4th of July holiday?
I got no indication that we would get a decision today, but I do believe that the holiday and making the decision, I do believe we are in the final countdown.
Because
now, I wouldn't be shocked. I originally predicted that it wouldn't happen before 4th of July, but given the importance of that holiday to this country, do I see Kawhi Leonard deciding to go back to Toronto
on the 4th of July?
Yes. Like, I mean, I know people think they don't know Kawhi, but let's just use some common sense in trying to determine that typically, logically, it's going to be either announced today or it would be announced Friday.
And now it should be of note, Kevin Durant made his famous decision 3 years ago tomorrow. It was on the 4th of July, so it wouldn't be unprecedented for a player to make this news and all the
but
NBA
on 4th of July to go to Canada would be unprecedented.
But maybe he could on the 4th of July say, I'm going to go to the Lakers or go to the Clippers. I'm going to come back to the States. So I think the best option for Kawhi Leonard is the Los Angeles Lakers, and I would think that even if they didn't have LeBron James. I want to make that part clear. I think that the ability to pair with Anthony Davis, when we are talking about the best players in the league, that top 7, which people can disagree on the order, but everyone's got the same 7 best guys: LeBron, Kawhi, Giannis, KD, Steph, Harden, Anthony Davis. The 3 youngest are Kawhi, Anthony Davis, and Giannis. Giannis is obviously not an option here. So it would make sense as far as career trajectory. He also wanted to be in Los Angeles to begin with. But I'm looking at it almost from the opposite angle. What is the argument against each place? The argument against Toronto is the age of the roster. The weather, of course, the taxes, but forget that. The age of the roster. They can immediately, if he comes back, defend their title. They might all of a sudden trump the Lakers and become the Vegas favorites. If not, they would certainly leap above Milwaukee as the second favorites and the favorites out east. But Marc Gasol is on the last year of his deal. Kyle Lowry is nearing the end. Serge Ibaka might not be nearing the end of his career, but certainly he's probably already past the beginning or the end of his prime. The only young guy that you would know you can grow with is Pascal Siakam, and to a lesser extent Fred VanVleet. Well, Danny Green's a free agent. So the age of the roster, if he does Toronto, I would think would have to be on a short-term deal. The Clippers, to me, would at this point be the biggest shock, because all they have going for them, in my opinion, is the coach and the GM, not the players. Now, you can say the city, but LA is the same city as the Lakers, so that almost cancels itself out. Who's the second best player on the Clippers? I think it's Lou Williams, and I like Lou Williams a lot, but if he's your second best guy, are you competing for championships even with Kawhi? Because Kawhi, as great as he was last year, we know the Raptors had an excellent roster around him, and the argument against the Lakers is the total disarray that we've seen from the front office, the unknown on the coaching staff in Frank Vogel, and a lack of depth. But I almost cross out the lack of depth, because the top of the roster would be the strongest we've ever seen in NBA history. I think the Lakers make the most sense. They were his first choice, and it is without a doubt his best opportunity to win multiple titles. And for as long as forget LeBron again, as long as he and Anthony Davis want to stay together, you will have the best duo in basketball. If LeBron were to say, you know what, I love Space Jam so much, I'm just going to do movies full time, I'm retiring, you would still have the best duo in basketball next year with Kawhi and Anthony Davis.
We're going to talk so much more about this today, but I don't think you can dismiss the Clippers and say, well, they just have a good coach and GM. They have a fantastic front office. They have a well-run organization. They have great stability, and those are 3 things that the Lakers just have not shown they've had in the last couple of months. And it seems like a guy like Kawhi Leonard wants that stuff, wants the coach, the front office, the stability, knowing that the future is sort of laid out for them. And one of the things I'd love to know before we break here is, who do you think he's got a better shot of winning with? We know the Lakers, but would you say the Clippers or the Raptors?
Well, let's not forget Toronto. People didn't think Masai was going to potentially stay there. They didn't have a whole bunch of stability. They had just fired the coach, hired one of the assistants. They had just gotten rid of one of the best players in franchise history. So let's not act like Kawhi can't function in the real world.
Of course.
Because we try to act like we know him. We don't know what Kawhi wants. But a lot of the discussions and what slowed up this process was answering those questions. And that's why it was important for him to talk to Magic Johnson himself, absent of the Lakers. When you're a kid growing up in Southern California and you see what Magic Johnson has gone through, you need an explanation for that. I believe that's been clarified. But ultimately, in the case that they asked me about, it's about Anthony Davis. It's beyond LeBron. Anthony Davis would be the favorite outside of Giannis to play with. And Anthony Davis has a more developed game than Giannis. He's just as good defensively as Giannis. So to me, I believe it's going to be, LA is going to cancel itself out, but Anthony Davis is going to be the swing piece as far as deciding, I believe, where Kawhi is going to sign.
But quickly, to answer your question, Jenna, if we scratch out the Lakers, there's no question the better chance to win a title between the Clippers and the Raptors this year is the Raptors. The Clippers process was 2 stars. Remember, they had 2 max cap spots.
Right.
The reason we thought the Clippers could be championship favorites was Kawhi plus someone else.
KD.
Kawhi plus KD, or Jimmy Butler, or Tobias Harris coming back if that was unlikely, but if that happened. Kawhi plus Lou Williams, Patrick Beverley, Montrezl Harrell is a contender and a nice team, but they are not a favorite. Kawhi going back to Toronto, we just saw them win a title.
Yep.
And so I think, to me, it's, as far as winning, Lakers, Raptors, Clippers, and I think most people would agree on that list. Hey, this is Nick Wright from First Things First, and you have to check out this website, Pristine.com. Pristine Auction has daily auctions with $1 starting bids. Authenticity is important to Pristine Auction. Pristine Auction guarantees authenticity, and it comes with authentication from the most trusted sources. Pristine Auctions are affordable. Most people don't think they can afford this stuff, but it's much more affordable than you think. A Dick Butkus signed Bears jersey sold for just $56, and a Mike Tyson autographed boxing glove sold for under $100. It's quick and free to register. Bidding is free, and you only pay if you win. Use registration code FTF when joining Pristine.com, and new users will receive a $5 auction credit. Again, you'll get a $5 auction credit when using registration code FTF to sign up for Pristine.com. That's Pristine.com.
All right, moving on to the Warriors. When they made a sign-and-trade deal with the Nets to acquire D'Angelo Russell, it left some of us scratching our heads with the assumption, well, they'd end up trading him in the near future. But the latest rumors have us, well, scratching our heads again. Warriors say they have a, quote, long-term vision for D'Angelo alongside Steph and Klay. Nick, you buying the Warriors' long-term plan here?
No, I'm buying it till about the trade deadline, maybe the end of the season.
Is this just a way to get a rise of stock a little bit?
Well, this makes no sense. This fit doesn't make sense. This is about trying to tread water while Klay Thompson's out. This is about getting something rather than nothing, except for a massive trade exception for Kevin Durant walking out the door. Mm-hmm. This is about a brand new multi-billion-dollar arena you are about to open in San Francisco and not having the Warriors 30 games into that arena be 14-16. That's what this is about. This is not about long-term planning. And one can argue, for long-term planning purposes, what you gave up for D'Angelo, which is 2 first-round picks and Andre Iguodala. That's the total cost.
Yes.
It's multiple transactions, but if you had just let Kevin Durant walk out that door, you would have 2 first-round picks and D'Angelo Russell. If you had just let Kevin Durant walk out that door and attached a second-round pick to him in some form of sign and trade, you would have 2 first-round picks, Andre Iguodala, and a trade exception. What you gave up to get D'Angelo Russell was substantial, and it's not just the fit once Klay comes back. It's the loss of Iggy off the court, in the locker room, when you now have left on that roster 3 guys, because Livingston's going to be gone as well. 3 guys who have been to all these finals. Steph, Klay, who's hurt, and Draymond, who wants a contract extension, and I do not believe is going to be offered the max contract extension he believes he deserves. For all those reasons, this is, to me, not as cut and dry as some would make it seem.
You're also giving up the thing that made the Warriors who they were a couple years ago, and that's defense. I mean, this is not adding more defense to your roster. It's adding more offense, whether he fits in or not. And right now, losing Iggy, you'd think they'd want to shore up that defense.
That's a great point. And basketball fans who have looked at the Warriors over the last 5 years, 4 of those years, they've been exceptionally defensively. Yeah, we talk about their three-point shooting. We talk about their ball movement. We talk about those things. But at the end of the day, the reason why they've been so dominant is because what they do on the defensive end, and they've been consistent with it. You can't do that with Steph and D'Angelo Russell. That is just not their skill set. Now, is Steve Kerr and Bob Myers, are they going to create a new brand of basketball? Because that's the really only sell here. And Nick is right. This is just a bluff This is a placeholder. This is to try to entertain the people, the Harlem Globetrotters. Like, we're not going to be real good, but we are going to be fancy to start the season. And this is until Klay is able to get healthy, because if you look at the West, and I know the reason why I think they traded for him was because they thought someone else, potentially Minnesota or someone else, was going to get in the game with Brooklyn and get a deal. So they didn't think he was going to be just a free agent where they could just sign him. Right. So they jumped in there and did the sign and trade for KD. But to me, this is not a championship basketball. These are not the building blocks. This is just another way to be able to get an asset, hold the asset until I can trade it, because D'Angelo Russell, he has totally changed his image. There are a lot of people in the NBA who would like to see him, on their basketball team, and he's only 23.
Right, he's got real value. And so what do I think happens? I think at some point D'Angelo Russell is traded for a package to Minnesota that's centered around Robert Covington, some picks. You get younger, you get longer, you add some defense. That makes sense. But D'Angelo Russell was other than I think Kemba Walker, most pick-and-roll centric player in the league, going to a team that doesn't like to run the pick and roll.
How many pick and rolls did they run last year as a team?
So I think it's 928 for D'Angelo and 940 for Golden State as a team.
The whole team.
The whole team. And those numbers might be off by a few, but he was about a dozen pick and rolls shy himself of what the Warriors ran as a team. It's not the offense Steve Kerr wants to run. Warrior fans, by the way, we're begging him to. Why aren't they running a Steph and KD pick and roll? Why would they not run seemingly? Because they want to do the motion ball movement, beautiful basketball, Spurs 2015, 2014 offense, and I support that. But the other reason they made this move is they saw what happened in the finals when Klay went out in that game and then missed a game, and when KD was still out. And when you can just focus on Steph, that often doesn't matter if they got a good defense in that situation, that offense grinds to a halt, right? And so they needed some other scoring. So I understand it, but let's not pretend that when Klay comes back, the Warriors are going to play Klay at the 3, they're going to run a 3-guard lineup. That's not what's going to happen. But we had Shaq on a couple weeks ago, and we were talking to him off the air about a different player, different team, different situation. One of the first things he mentioned was money. He said, who's making the most money there?
Yes.
And he was talking about it in the context of the money speaks more than anything in an NBA locker room. And Draymond Green's about to make $18 million. He has 3 championships, been to 5 finals, won Defensive Player of the Year, coming second twice. D'Angelo Russell is 23 years old, about to be on his 3rd team, is about to make $27 million. Now, you give Draymond a max extension this summer, which I'm sure he would happily take, then that goes away. I don't believe the Warriors are going to do that. I think they're going to consider all their options next summer with Draymond. That is a recipe for disaster, especially when Iggy's not in the locker room as the adult in the room.
Calming force.
Calming force. Klay's on the training table, and Steph's getting worn out every night. So this is not risk-free for Golden State.
No, it is what we call a placeholder, but it's also protection for their star player. They saw what happened, and Bob Myers I got to get Steph some help before Klay comes back. Say he misses 50 games. Steph would be a different player. The defenses that he would see, we would go back. Remember we were saying in the playoffs, wow, haven't seen a defense like this since college. We would see a lot of college defenses going against the Golden State Warriors if they didn't acquire another guard, another elite scorer.
Stories to start your morning. Kawhi Leonard reportedly met with the Lakers and Clippers and will now meet with the Toronto Raptors before making a decision of where he will play basketball next season. Our own Cris Carter had the inside track yesterday, tweeting, Kawhi has not made a decision, and to think the Lakers are ahead of the Clippers or the Raptors would be wrong. See, what's your best option, you think, for Kawhi?
And this is just my opinion. And they did ask my opinion, too. I told them that I thought I would play with Anthony Davis. I believe that the front office stuff can be worked out, and I do believe Anthony Davis is the big carrot in this. So I believe it's about championships, and if it is, you should go to best place to try to win multiple championships.
These are all good options. To me, there's one clear third option. It might be the one he takes. That's the Clippers. That would be the toughest mountain to climb as far as to win instantly. And the best thing the Clippers have to offer is the city, and the Lakers can offer that as well. The Lakers, he joins the Lakers. They instantly become the best big three we've ever seen. And he and Anthony Davis can be the best duo in basketball for a decade, even once LeBron's done.
Nick, I got to let you in on this. I did promise Jenna some type of update on Kawhi. I hope I can get it before the end of the show, but there will definitely be an update on Kawhi today.
Okay.
Nick, when that happens, I promise I will let you know.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Probably
Jenna.
text
Good
you.
looking out.
If the Lakers don't get Kawhi, no need to worry. The purple and gold added Jared Dudley yesterday on a one-year deal. Nick, thoughts on Dudley to the Lakers?
Listen, I know Jared, so I like him personally, and this is a guy who last year, even though I think he averaged 5 points a game for the Nets, they were always better with him on the court than off the court. He is a great guy amongst young players as far as telling them where to be defensively, makes the right pass. This is the type of guy you need in the locker room, and this is the type of guy the Lakers, with or without Kawhi, are going to have to fill out their roster with as far as savvy veterans on minimum contracts. He recruited himself to the Lakers. He talked to our pal Adrian Wojnarowski yesterday and said, I was recruiting LeBron and AD to tell them I wanted to come play with them. He wants a chance at a ring before his career's up. This is a great spot for him.
Yeah, it's a good move for him. And last year, especially in that series against Philadelphia, it not on stats, but when you're at the games and you see the reason why Brooklyn is in such a good position, not only the front office, Sean Marks, not only the coach, but they had veterans like him that were able to pass that team off. And I believe he doesn't leave Brooklyn if Kevin Durant is healthy.
Agreed.
But he is trying to get that first chip, and good for him. What a great 82 games with LeBron James, AD, potentially Kawhi, traveling around. He's going to keep it loose. Now, he ain't going to help the team body fat test, Jenna. Like when they take that test, it's going to be like...
He's not Miles Garrett. He's not a workout
Part
warrior.
of the reason why Nick loves him is that body, Jenna.
Oh.
Or lack thereof.
Or lack thereof. Better
Y'all
said.
hating,
Moving
man.
on to the Warriors. Klay Thompson underwent successful surgery yesterday to repair his torn ACL. Klay's recovery slated 5 to 7 months. Nick, how good can the Warriors be if Klay is back for the playoffs?
If Klay's back full strength for the playoffs, that's a very tough out. They could be... Could the Warriors, if Klay is back full strength and they get the right draw, be a Western Conference finalist? I believe they could.
So you believe they're a playoff team automatic?
Oh, these people saying the Warriors ain't going to make the playoffs, put some respect on Steph Curry's name. Steph Curry, our pal Chris Mannix said put him on the Magic, he's going to win the MVP. The Warriors are going to find their way into the playoffs based on the strength of Steph Curry, Steve Kerr, and that infrastructure. And if Klay is back in time for the playoffs, I mean, they're not a championship contender, but they're a tough out for anybody.
Every doctor I've ever heard with ACLs, they always say they're successful, but I think something should be noted. There was a lot of time between the time Klay got hurt and the time they operated. That means there was significant swelling. If you look at the articles after the game, Klay talked about his knee swelling up. So in that swelling, you can't operate successfully until you allow that swelling to go down. So they had a long period of time before they went to L.A., had this procedure. I expect Klay, because Klay has been a warrior, not just by name, but injury. I expect him to come back on the shorter side of this, closer to 5 months than the 7 months.
All right, let's move on to free agent Boogie Cousins. The oft-injured all-star center has yet to find a suitor, and recent reports are there's not a market for Boogie. Remember, Cousins signed a one-year deal with the Warriors in order to turn heads and land the big deal this offseason. All right, Nick, what's the best fit for Boogie Cousins?
This is tough, man. I thought Chris brought up a really interesting team. We talked about this yesterday, which is the Spurs. They need a center. I think he's a good enough passer. He could do what they do, but they don't have cap space, and they don't seem to have a ton of interest. Dallas has the cap space. There's only one free agent left that is going to demand huge money. It's Kawhi. He's not interested in Dallas. Dallas might be in on Danny Green, but they could still bring in Boogie. But does Dallas want to play Kristaps at center, have him be their stretch five? They haven't shown much interest in Boogie. I think Atlanta could be interesting, but it's going to be another one-year prove-it type of situation. Maybe he can get the deal Julius Randle got, well, not this year, last year, which is 2 years, around $20 million with a player option on the second year, so he can, if he plays great, then go try to cash in on free agency. But this is a tough spot. He did everything right as far as his Achilles rehab. He wasn't a distraction in the locker room. He was a good teammate. And then just like he popped his Achilles, he's trying to make a hustle play to help his team, and he tears his quad. And I know he came back, Chris, faster than anyone could have expected from that torn quad. But he didn't look like he could jump over a phone book. Like, he looked athletically, and he was never a great athlete. Athletically, he looked like a shell of his former self. That's concerning. And so this is a tough fall for Boogie, but it doesn't shock me there's not a huge market.
But therein lies the danger sometimes when you do want to rush yourself back. Do you think going to the Warriors was the right decision for him to try to go out there and prove something in a year? Would that have been the choice now looking back?
Well, looking back on it, if I look back on it, I got to say it's a mistake. And the reason why it was a mistake, not that he went there, the mistake was rushing himself back early. Because then he had 2 major injuries, and the quad made everyone. That's what is keeping everyone back, because they saw the quad, they saw the lack of athleticism, but they couldn't distinguish between the Achilles, did he lose it there, or because the quad. I believe if he doesn't come back, I believe there are suitors for him because they didn't see that bad basketball that he was playing at the end of the season. So his chess move, that's what he said. Yeah. When he called the Warriors, Draymond and them, I'm going to join the Warriors, that magic carpet ride came to a crash ending. And he was forced onto the court because he wanted to be able to change the optics on his career. I believe he should sign with the Lakers for the minimum with Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis does not want to play the 5, has never wanted to play the 5, and him and Boogie Cousins, both of them together, played their best basketball together. So I don't believe it's one of the moves that the Lakers must do, but that to me is a logical landing spot for someone like Boogie Cousins. And just like IT a couple years ago, if you try to play injured, all right, your money, if you're in a contract year, they will hold it against you. So I don't see teams paying guys for being heroes. So if I'm an athlete, I'm out there, you need to watch yourself. Kevin Durant. You saw what happened to him, but because he was so good, he was able to get the guaranteed money. IT was not there in Boston in his career. Didn't he just sign for the minimum?
Yeah.
Like,
which makes
the amount of money that he lost. Boogie Cousins diving for the loose ball, tearing his Achilles, going for another loose ball, tearing his quad. He's lost a lot of money the last couple years.
And the other thing that hurt Boogie, and it's a relatively small sample size, but he did come back on January 18th. From January 18th to the end of the regular season, Boogie had turned himself prior to this year into a good three-point shooting big man.
Yep.
His last year in Sacramento, he was 36%. New Orleans, he's 35%. Last year, he was 27%. So if you don't have the athleticism, and if people are concerned,
no legs.
Are you actually a stretch 5, or are you just a center that takes threes that can't make them? I mean, a poor man's Joel Embiid in that regard, and Embiid had a really bad three-point shooting year this year. That's a problem as well. And even though he's on his best behavior, I don't think people have totally put in the closet and locked away the concerns about the teammate and character and how he's going to deal with another year of emotional devastation and financial disappointment.
And that's the thing that Jenna pointed out. How can you repair from that? We went to the game in the Garden. He gets thrown out of the game in street clothes. Jenna's like, what the?
That's right. We just sat down and he was already thrown out of the game.
How can you and the Warriors not winning and the turmoil that they went through was not able to repair the image. But good catch by you as far as Boogie Cousins and this not working out for him.
All right, let's move on now to the Philadelphia 76ers, who are all in on Ben Simmons, despite his, well, let's call it his slight lack of shooting from long distance. He'll reportedly signed a 5-year, $170 million max deal to stay in Philly. Simmons has long been pegged as the franchise's savior alongside Joel Embiid, but some have their doubts, one of which is our very own Cris Carter. So, CC, good or bad idea to max out Ben Simmons?
Well, you have to. In the NBA, the economics, and you only got a little more than 300 players, 30 teams. So you have to be able to take some chances. In the NBA, like no other league, man, they pay on potential and they will guarantee you $100 million. I saw Chandler Parsons a number of years ago, 2016. He got over $90 million for 4 years from the Grizzlies. There have been a lot of bad contracts. A lot of guys got maxed out that weren't max players, weren't even all-stars. The Sixers have no choice. Now, Ben Simmons might not develop a jump shot, but he is an all-star player, and he is the next guy up in free agency. They spent over close to $3.5 billion. This doesn't include Ben's new deal, but a lot of those guys on there, they're not all-stars, but they're still getting $100 million. You have to max him out. You brought him into your program. You made him the first pick in the draft. You knew that first year he wasn't going to play. So that's one of the biggest problems, because we got 1 year where we didn't see him develop. So now he's getting his new deal with only playing 3 seasons. So, and that becomes a problem. I don't believe he's going to develop a jump shot like other people think. And if he could right now, people criticize Julius Randle, the Knicks signing him. If Ben Simmons could be him now, because he shoots 34%. He averaged 21 and 9. We know he's a better playmaker, but the expectation, his game is not where Julius Randle's game is. So who is Ben Simmons at his best? I know that he's limited as a shooter, but I'm not going to stop. Shouldn't stop him from getting that max contract with the 76ers.
You have to max him out. This is, to me, a no-brainer. He's the number 1 pick of the draft, and if you redid his draft, he'd be the number 1 pick all over again, warts and all. Like, if we take the last 5 years of drafts, cross out this year, the rookies who haven't played, guys you would rather have than Ben Simmons in the last 5 drafts, aside from this season. Karl Anthony Towns, I think, has proven himself. Donovan Mitchell, I would say Luka Doncic, and then you get to the maybes, like De'Aaron Fox, Jason Tatum, Trae Young. He's 4th or 5th as far as his draft class, the draft class before, and the 2 after. So you have to max him out. The problem is he didn't get any better from year 1 to year 2, and which was really year 2 to year 3, to your point. But as far as playing, and we can show it to you, I bake in for every player some progression. If you look at these numbers, if you can't see the top number, what's year 1, what's year 2? There's no discernible difference. I mean, from year 1 to year 2, he went up 1 point per game scoring, less than a rebound a game, went down half an assist, and the field goal percentage went up 1.5 points. Like, he's the same guy.
And if he didn't improve with a max contract looming over him last year with the pressure of, well, let me get better and see if maybe I'm not going to take this, or maybe there's something else out there for. What makes you think now that he has all that money, he's going to go put time, sweat, blood, and tears into staying in the gym, to your point, this offseason?
I believe he's going to spend more time. But we watch so many guys shoot the ball. We think shooting the basketball is easy. And we think guys who can't shoot the basketball, we appropriate all this. Oh, yeah, this is going to happen. I'm going to tell you what's more alarming than them numbers. You start looking at the radius away from the bucket that he is in years 1 and year 2, and you start to realize he's not comfortable away from the basketball. Away from the basket.
Last year he took 25 total shots, 16-plus feet from the basket. That's impossible. 25 shots, not three-pointers. You said he got $170 million, right?
Yep.
That's $10 million for every three-pointer attempted in his career. That he's taken 17. He's took 25 shots outside of 16 feet last year. The free throw line's 15 feet. You say, see, we appropriate it to people. I'm not appropriating to him that he's going to become a good shooter. What I am going to say is I saw Brook Lopez go from a guy who never shot threes to a guy who was a great three-point
But you know the thing about Brook Lopez? We didn't have no expectations for him. Like, we didn't put them expectations on him. 99% of all NBA players improve their shot. He's in that 1%. And we got to recognize that. Regardless
what is that? Is that skill? Is it talent? Is it
I
effort?
think it's in his head.
It's mental?
It's practice. You know the reason why we see him, we see him running up and down the court? Why we don't see him taking jump shots? Because there's no footage of it. There's no footage of him being able to shoot jump shots on a consistent basis.
See, so where I'll disagree with you on effort is I don't think he's putting in less time in the gym than other NBA stars. I think he's being less effective with his time. We had Blake Griffin sit right here and say when he was remaking his jump shot, it was embarrassing. He said he wanted to be in the gym by himself. Kevin O'Connor is one of the smartest NBA people out there. Has for 2 years said he thinks Ben Simmons is shooting literally with the wrong hand. But whatever it is, he is not He has not humbled himself to, I'm going to work on what I'm terrible at and what I'm uncomfortable at. That's the only way he takes the next step.
I think it's pride. I don't think he's a point guard. I think he's a guy who's 6'10", very athletic, who can dribble the basketball. If I was his coach, I would take that out of his head. I would put a true point guard on the team, and I would have him play on the box, get rebounds, get out into transition, and be a great defender. I would remove that myth. Oh, he's a point guard. Oh, he's the next Magic Johnson. Oh, he's the next LeBron James. Those comparisons have killed him. He is not Magic Johnson. Magic Johnson can shoot better than him in college than he'll ever be able to shoot. He is not LeBron James. He's Ben Simmons. He's a force in the paint. He's a force on the defensive end. He deserves the max contract. But this thought that he is a point guard, he's not. Draymond Green's not a point guard. He's a point forward, guy who's athletic, can get on the move, can distribute, but he is not and doesn't have the skill set.
Which is why Draymond made the most of what he is good at, to your point.
And if this is the level for expectation for Ben, though, if he could just shoot the way Draymond shot this year, it would, and Draymond wasn't a good shooter this year, add an entire element to his game. I mentioned he took 25 shots outside of 16 feet last season. He made 2.
Wow.
That's impossible. And so it is Boban Marjanovic has developed more of a soft touch from 12 feet than Ben Simmons has. You can't have it. And now he does have the money. Rich Paul and Clutch Sports said they'd go get him the max contract. They got him the max contract. Now it is on him to come back next year with some type of intermediate game before he develops the three-point.
Back here, first things first, we're joined by FS1 NBA analyst Sarah Kustok.
Good up, Sarah. How are you?
Welcome back. Everyone's got nice tans.
We are happy to be back. We are happy to have you here. What's see?
Congratulations to Kustok. Kustok read all the tea leaves, had a couple job opportunities, could have gone to the West Coast, chased Kawhi and LeBron,
Nope.
got a little birdie, told her stay in Brooklyn, and she signed a contract with the Nets.
I don't know if any of this is public.
Yeah, I don't care. Yeah, I don't care. Sarah Kustok. Hey, if they don't want her, we'll take her. Goodbye, Nick. Let's do it, Jenna.
I'm in.
Let's do it, Kus. Let's do it. Let's do it.
Sarah Kustok here, stay for a long time. We're happy for her. Great part of this show.
And
Great part
that
Did not try to say that.
Yeah, that
What are you talking about?
Okay.
Sarah, when lifelong Nets fan Kyrie Irving had to make his free agency decision this summer, Brooklyn was the no-brainer. The 6-time All-Star took to his Instagram to say, quote, "Home is where my heart is." Kyrie will be paired alongside Kevin Durant, who could be sidelined for year one as he recovers from his Achilles injury. No one will have a better seat to watch the action unfold than you, Sarah. So I will start with you, Sarah. How will Kyrie fit in Brooklyn?
I think he's going to be an exceptional fit. And we can look at a multitude of things. First, his talent, the skill set, the way in which he is an all-star coming to a team that has such a solid core of young players. However, to me, I'm most excited about the fact that Kyrie is finally making a decision of where he wants to be. I know there's been a lot of dialogue about how he's going to transition, fit in, his leadership, his maturity, the way things finished in Boston. But more than anything, I think for Kyrie, it's about where does he want to be? And so hearing him say home is where the heart is, he wants to come back here. He had a long time to think about it. That's why I'm confident he will be such a good fit, because this is his choice. And Kenny Atkinson, to me, is a coach that is tremendous in understanding how to resonate with players, how to bring out the best, how to help them fit in. We've seen that with D'Angelo Russell and what he did with him throughout the course of the last season. But all of these players, the development that he and his staff have brought them to, I think this is going to be an excellent fit for the entire organization, but especially with Kyrie.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point as far as it was his choice. And I do remember as a young kid, last time Kyrie Irving had a choice, he chose Duke. And when I was a young kid, I had the choice to make. I can go anywhere in the country, Los Angeles, going to USC, going down to Miami. And I made the choice to stay at home in Ohio. Because my high school coach showed me the value of me playing where people knew me and I understood the culture there. But he also let me know too, Chris, there's more distractions at home. Some of the people you're involved with in your hometown, if they don't have the best thing for you, you have to be able to manage those things. So even at that young age, you need to realize that being close to home, there's a certain set of things that you're going to have to deal with that other players aren't going to deal with. So that's going to be on the board. But at this time of his career, it's just time to grow up. It's time for him to be responsible for his own talent. This is two things that I deem to be very important in people's life. Number one, be self-aware. Understand really who you are, what you are, your strengths, and your weaknesses. And number two is, if you're talented, you are responsible for that talent. It is up to you to be a self-starter. It is up to you to put your body in the best situation, your mind in the best situation that we can get the best out of your talent. Brooklyn has the great environment for him as far as the coaching staff, and these younger players, they don't need that much leadership. A lot of times we take that leadership thing a little too far. We need someone to be the leader on a daily basis, be consistent, and that's going to be the challenge for Kyrie, because it's a great situation for him. They're going to play a style of basketball he's going to love, playing in the Barclays Center, the way he dribbles the basketball, the way basketball is taught here in New York City. It's going to be fabulous to see. The only thing is, man, I wish Kevin Durant was with him the first time, because I believe it would help his transition, because Kevin Durant makes basketball easier for those around him.
If KD was out there, if KD hadn't just popped his Achilles, I would have no concern about this whatsoever. The only concern, the only, to me, legitimate concern, or the most legitimate concern, is can Kyrie avoid the mistakes he made in Boston? The fact that he chose this place it gives him a greater chance of avoiding those mistakes. The fact that he made those mistakes there and hopefully has learned from them gives him a better chance of avoiding those pitfalls. But if this first year does not go the way it should, I'm not talking about win total. Things can happen in that regard. But if we're hearing some of the same things out of the locker room, some of the same leadership and tension and all these issues, that is an indictment on Kyrie. It is on Kyrie Irving to remind everyone, as you would say, who he's been on the court and have that be the story exclusively. He does not have to be all of a sudden go from the bad leadership experience in Boston to all of a sudden a grand poobah leader. By the way, DeAndre Jordan's going to help with that as well. It's one of the
yes.
He's not just there because he's buddies with KD and Kyrie. He's a veteran. He's seasoned. He understands what his role is going to be, and not only helping Jared Allen, but helping the team as a whole. But this is now up to Kyrie Irving to make the most of the situation that he has been working towards since he asked out of Cleveland. You weren't going to be in a better winning situation than the one you were in Cleveland with LeBron, coming off 3 straight finals, having won a championship, I thought the 2017 Cavs were the best Cavs team of that whole run. He asked out of it. He's now in a situation of his own choosing. He has to make the most of it.
Can I just say real quick, he was in a pretty good winning situation in Boston. He happened to get hurt, but that team took him to the Eastern Conference Finals. That was a strong, young, talented team. It's not like he went from Cleveland with LeBron to a team that had nothing on it. And
that first year it went well.
Okay, and then the second year when he was healthy, it didn't quite go well.
It went well for him, though.
It did go well.
Kyrie Irving he had a good year.
And he was playing one of the best years of his career that we had seen. I also think people are comparing a lot. The roster of Boston and just looking at it as talented young players is the same as Brooklyn, and it's not quite the same.
No.
His quote-unquote backup, or the sixth man, or the other point guard, Spencer Dinwiddie, on the team, is one of the biggest recruiters of Kyrie to come here.
Yeah.
They are close friends. They can play well together. Karis LeVert is he's coming back from injury last year, but more established where he's at. I feel like all the pieces of this team, there's a different fit and a different chemistry than, for example, Terry Rozier, who maybe felt like he should have been starting.
The other agendas.
Right. There's a clear pecking order. The problem in Brooklyn was part of it. I thought Jackie McMullen wrote a great piece on this, and she's as connected to the Celtics as anybody. Yes, Kyrie owns a lot of it. But so does Brad Stevens.
Yeah. And the problem's in Boston, not in Brooklyn.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I misspoke. Yes, in Boston. My apologies. Kyrie owns a lot of it. But so does Brad Stevens.
Yep.
And so does Jason Tatum for not seeming to care so much defensively and trying to be Kobe without Kobe's one-in-a-generation ability to make impossible shots. And so does Terry Rozier for just waiting for this moment to get this contract, not recognizing, hey, Kyrie's flatly better than me. Spencer Dinwiddie signed that contract extension while recruiting Kyrie, knowing he's not going to start, knowing that he is signing it to be a backup.
Different.
Like there is a pecking order is important, whether it's on television shows or teams or offices. Everyone needs to know where they stand and be comfortable with where they stand, which is one of the other reasons why Kyrie teaming up with a superstar, but this superstar, the guy that came together intentionally, not he and Jimmy Butler being, hey, KD chose the Knicks, we got a max spot, Jimmy wants to come here. Those are all reasons it should work, which circles back to my point, which I think is also yours. If it doesn't, then Kyrie's got only himself to blame in this situation. If it doesn't work, there are no other factors that you can blame.
But I think what you said is a good point. It would be so much better if we were able to see Kyrie and KD from day one as opposed to seeing what Kyrie can do for that whole first year. All right, Sarah, moving on quickly to the Warriors. When they made the trade with the Nets to acquire D'Angelo Russell, it was reported they'd end up trading him in the near future. But the latest report says the Warriors have a long-term vision for D'Angelo alongside Steph and Klay. Sarah, you saw D'Angelo up close with the Nets the last 2 years. You buying the Warriors' plan to keep him with Steph and Klay?
I'm not certain what the Warriors' long-term plan is, and I don't want to speculate whether or not he is going to be there throughout the course of this 4-year max that they signed him to. However, I will say after watching him, learning more and understanding him as a person, as a player, and his game, I think he can fit alongside them. I think more than anything, and before Klay comes back, I like the idea of him playing alongside Steph Curry. And I think it's hard to not work well along one of the best shooters that we have ever seen in the NBA. However, I think the way in which he could space to the floor, the way that he shoots, the vision that he brings a game, and just taking some of the responsibility and load off Curry. Because so many teams are going to game plan and strategize against stopping a guy like Klay or a guy like Steph on the offensive end, that D'Angelo Russell can change the complexion of that because he's a guy that can put up buckets. He can take over a game. So I think that will work well together. However, I'm not sold on the fact that the Warriors necessarily think this is, their three-man combination in the backcourt throughout the duration of the next couple seasons. But I think in the short term, it's something that can work.
Yeah, I think it does work on the offensive end. But basketball is a game that's played on 94 feet. And that other end, this is the first time in his career, he's going to have to guard the best perimeter guy they have. Because that's the Steph Curry effect, too. Oh, he gets to dribble the ball up. But hey, you know what you get to do? You get to do what Klay Thompson has done without any excuses, regardless of who that player was. Even if the player was a wing, Klay would be able to guard that player. But just imagine all those minutes in those first 40 games he's going to have to log. Look at the guards in the Western Conference. Oh, it's going to be knockdown, drag out. The guards in the Western Conference, significantly better than the guards in the Eastern Conference. So I see they got no rim protection. And even when they get Klay back, look, they don't have no size. Klay, 6'5". Steph, 6'4". D'Angelo, 6'3", 6'4".
6'5". He's 6, but he's lean. But
okay, no problem. But plays like he's 6 foot. So no rim protection. So just imagine that. It's a different ball game. Look who he had defending the rim, Jarrett Allen, one of the best we have in the NBA defending the rim. So this is going to be a difference. The game is not just played on the offensive end. I believe it affects him, and I believe because of that effect, he can't be in their long-term plans. What are they going to do? Pay Steph how much money?
Well, Steph's already making 40 plus. He's locked up long term. Klay obviously just got locked up long term for 35 plus. D'Angelo is now going to average $29 million a year over the course of this contract. I get why they did it. I don't know if it's the right move because it was not it's not okay. We're just trading D'Angelo Russell. We're going to lose KD anyway, so now we get D'Angelo Russell. No, to make this work, you had to give away 2 first-round picks and Andre Iguodala. And I understand that Andre Iguodala probably only has a couple productive years left, and his days of being even a 30-minute-a-game guy are gone. But over the last 5 years, what Warrior had the best plus-minus? Not Steph, not Klay.
Iggy.
It was Andre Iguodala. What was the player they inserted in the lineup to create the initial death lineup? It was Andre Iguodala. When they played the Houston Rockets, the one team that really threatened them out west, what starting lineup did they go to with Kevin Durant obviously now on the team? Andre Iguodala.
And who's been the calming force on this team when you got a guy like Boogie coming in there when there was friction and tension throughout the season?
Iguodala has certainly been at least one of the adult voices in the room, and so they lose him. They lose the ability to make some midseason moves because NBA weird rules about trading picks in consecutive years. You already don't have your 2024 pick and another pick, so it's not cost free. But I get it. They believe Klay's going to be back for the playoffs. They believe that they are not done competing for championships, and they cannot ask Steph Curry for the first 40 games of next year to go do what he had to do at the end of, was it Game 3 against Toronto and then Game 4 against Toronto? I might have the games wrong, 2 and 3. Whatever it was, when Klay was out, and all of a sudden, Steph is out there by himself offensively.
And that's where I have seen D'Angelo Russell, we all have, those who have watched the Brooklyn Nets more closely, single-handedly take over games.
Yep.
And so the expectation, and I have all the respect in the world for Andre Iguodala, but when was his time? His time was the postseason. And throughout the course of the season, he paced himself until he got to the playoffs. And so if what you need is a guy to come in and help carry the load throughout the course of the regular season and help you get that type of spot in the standings to compete in the playoffs, D'Angelo Russell, to me, is a guy that you can insert in and do that.
And also, D'Angelo Russell last year gotten himself into the best shape possible. Oh, he's going to need it because he's going to have to play 36 to 38 minutes a game in those first 30 to 50 games because they're going to have some load management on Steph.
Yep.
Klay's going to be unavailable, and they're going to have at least 4 or 5 minimum salary players on the bench. So every time he go over to the bench, Steve Kerr going to look down there at him and be like, hey, buddy, we need you to get back in and earn that $29 million.
And because they know they might be moving him, they're less concerned about the workload on him. He played 30 minutes a game last year. I want to make this clear, and the Warriors will be mad at me, but they're always mad at me. It's fine. If they were not moving into Chase Center, they wouldn't have made this move. If they were not moving into a new arena next year, I believe they would have said, we lost KD, we're going to take a year to retool, we might move off Draymond a year from now, have Steph, Klay, real salary cap flexibility, and our own picks to go try to do something. I think this is not just a basketball move, but a business move with all those expensive seats they've already sold, trying to make sure those fans are watching a legitimate product, a winning product, until Klay gets back. That absolutely played a factor.
All right, moving on to the Lakers now. You know, it's a shame that nobody at this table gambles. Otherwise, I would say go put some money on the Los Angeles Lakers. Even without Kawhi Leonard on the team, a little town in Nevada called Las Vegas has the Lakers as even money to win the 2020 title. Nick, I'll explain what even money means in the break, but can the Lakers win a championship without Kawhi Leonard?
They can, but that would not be a good bet right now. Even money, they are not that type of favorites without Kawhi Leonard, especially given the free agents that are not left on the market, especially given the fact that when we're talking about them filling out the rest of their roster, if Kawhi does not choose them and they have $32 million to spend, there ain't nobody to spend it on. You're going to bring Kelly Oubre, TJ McConnell, Justin Holiday. These are the names. They brought in my buddy Jared Dudley yesterday on the veteran minimum. They'll probably buy out Andre Iguodala. I believe even without Kawhi Leonard, they will be the favorite, but barely. If Kawhi goes back to Toronto, they are right there. I believe Giannis and Milwaukee are still coming. I don't think the Rockets are all of a sudden going to fall apart. There's one team they haven't been able to beat the last 5 years. That team, to me, is no longer relevant for this upcoming season. They're Philadelphia. If they can defensively be as good as I believe they can be with Al Horford, they're dangerous as well, and they go 5 deep in their starting lineup. So, yes, because you've got that guy right there, the best player in the world, and Anthony Davis, the best big man in the world, you should be the favorite. And and they do have a legitimate third option without Kawhi, and your guy, Kyle Kuzma.
Yes.
I don't want to leave him out of it. He averaged, I think, 18 points per game last year. But because they're going to be on option C free agency-wise, if they don't get Kawhi. Option A was the star. Option B was Terrence Ross, Patrick Beverley, Seth Curry.
4 or 5 players.
They're going to be on option C, which is what the leftovers of other teams' free agent passes. It will be as closely of a contested season as we've seen in a decade or more.
And because the Warriors have broken up.
Yeah.
This is not the 73-win Warrior team. In Houston, no one's afraid of Houston. They didn't even want to stay together. Utah, they got a nice start in 5.
Yep.
Do you believe in Whiteside in Portland with the backcourt that they have? No. So, yes, the Lakers should be the favorite. But the lack of moves that they can make because of what's happened in free agency the first 3 days and because of lack of draft picks that they have that they had to trade away to get Anthony, they can't maneuver, not only as far as players available, but they don't have a bunch of picks and things that they can trade away to be able to acquire another player. So the first year, they would be very, very limited, a lot like the first year of LeBron when he went to Miami.
And here's the distinction that I would draw is if Kawhi doesn't pick the Lakers, I believe, this is not based on any inside information, I believe it's because he stays in Toronto. I think the least likely option right now, at least for me it would appear, is the Clippers. I don't know that the Lakers would have a great regular season with LeBron, Anthony Davis, Kuzma, and a bunch of lower-level role players. But once you get to the playoffs, as deep as the West is, the best guy on Denver is Jokic, Jamal Murray. They're going to stare him down in the postseason. The best guy on Utah, I like Donovan Mitchell a lot. He's ready to stare LeBron down in the postseason. Dame and CJ, they're ready to stare these guys down in the postseason. I mentioned how much I like Houston. We know Harden and Chris Paul's history in the postseason, right? So Paul George and Russell Westbrook, they wouldn't be scared, but they haven't gotten past the first round in the 3 years they've been together. So I don't think this Lakers team without Kawhi would be built for a 58-win regular season. I really don't, because you're going to have LeBron and Anthony Davis on something of load management. You're going to have those role players playing heavier minutes. But once you get to the playoffs, every series they play in the Western Conference, you could argue they will have the two best guys. Because, well, Steph, if they have to play him, he'd be one of them. But KD's not playing this year.
Yes.
Giannis is out east. I believe Kawhi will be out east. Harden depends on how you slot him. And in the playoffs, that really matters.
You know who we don't talk about a lot when we talk about the Lakers is Frank Vogel. And there is going to be something to not just dropping talent down and assuming here it is on paper, it's all going to work. And I know it's LeBron, and I know it's Anthony Davis, and I know it's potentially Kawhi Leonard, but someone's going to have to make it all work. How does he factor into all this?
I think under all the conversation, and if the Lakers had a normal basketball search for the basketball coach and they decided on Frank Vogel, I think people would have been very comfortable with that. But how they went about it, I want this guy, and then, Jason Kidd's on the staff. All that, I believe, muddied the waters. But Frank Vogel, his basketball is rock solid. What type of identity are they going to have? You don't know that when you don't have the roster. So I think that in the basketball world, there's a great deal of confidence, and I know there's more confidence than when LeBron went back to Cleveland with David Blatt was there. So absolutely, people believe in LeBron James, people respect Frank Vogel, and people know how special AD is.
I'm going to reserve judgment on Frank Vogel. I was very impressed with what he did in Indiana. I was very unimpressed with what he did in Orlando, especially then seeing what Orlando did as soon as he left. With or without Kawhi Leonard, he is going to be under the most scrutiny of any coach in basketball.
Yes.
Especially with Jason Kidd breathing down his neck, especially with how leaky that Lakers organization can be. The Lakers could be on track to win a championship, and all of a sudden there are rumors about Frank Vogel's job security. To me, the reason I haven't talked too much about Frank Vogel is because it is such an unknown of how he will gel with these egos and these stars, how good of a coach he actually is, and how much he learned from the failure in Orlando.
Stories to start your morning. Kawhi Leonard reportedly met with the Lakers and Clippers and will now meet with the Raptors before making a decision. Our own Cris Carter had the inside track yesterday. Cris, you tweeted, Kawhi has not made a decision, and to think the Lakers are ahead of the Clippers or the Raptors would be wrong. What do you think, CC, the best option for Kawhi?
The other Steph Curry's rooting for Toronto in this one. I guarantee you that.
Sure.
Stay east, Kawhi.
Right.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I had to threaten Kawhi's team yesterday. I tell him, man, listen, if you guys don't send me something in a hurry, I'm getting ready to ship you guys back to San Antonio. They don't have cap space. This is what I'm going to ship you to Dallas to make San Antonio upset. But in communicating with them, they said, don't overreact. Don't listen to Twitter. Stay on course. There's a lot of information he's trying to retain, and there is no team right now, specifically the Lakers, that have an advantage over the Clippers or over the Raptors. That was after yesterday's show, about 24 hours ago, and I expect in the near future that I will have another Kawhi update.
So be following at Chris Carter 80 if that comes before the or after the show's over. Just real quick, could this happen today? I know you were initially thinking the end of the week. Could it happen today?
I don't think it's going to happen today. With the holiday being tomorrow, is he going to pull a Durant, announce it on the holiday? His Uncle D, his birthday is on Friday, the 5th. So I just believe we are in the countdown.
Okay.
We can start tick, tick,
so it's
tick,
possible it happens today?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, moving on to the Warriors. Thought you had more to say there. Klay Thompson underwent successful surgery yesterday to repair his torn ACL. So Klay's recovery slated for 5 to 7 months. Nick, how good can the Warriors be if Klay's back for the playoffs?
Listen, if Klay comes back with 15, 20 games of the regular season, so he has his full legs underneath him, his momentum
into the
absolutely.
postseason.
The Warriors can be a very tough out. They could be, if they get the right draw, a conference finalist. I really believe that. I think Steph and Klay and Draymond are still a dangerous team. They're not a championship contender, and they're not going to be good enough defensively to win 3 or 4 rounds of the playoffs. But if Klay is on even the 6 to 7 month recovery time frame, no one's going to want to see them in the postseason. So I think best case scenario, they make their 6th straight conference finals.
Well, I don't think they're a conference final team. I think because just of regular math, when Klay got hurt till July the 2nd, which was yesterday, that's a lot of time between surgery. Why did they wait all that time? Because they had a significant amount of swelling that was in that knee. And let's just do it, okay? August, September, October, November, December, January. And then he's going to be on the pitch count. So now you got him in the playoff. In the playoffs, does he play 35 minutes? Does he play 30 minutes? He played 25 minutes. So I don't believe that knee is going to completely come back until the following season. So I wouldn't rely on Klay to be able to push himself to put the Warriors over the top. So this is a dangerous situation for the Warriors.
All right, let's get back to Kyrie Irving and the Brooklyn Nets. The 6-time All-Star took to his Instagram to say, quote, "Home is where my heart is." Kyrie will be paired alongside Kevin Durant, who could be sidelined for year 1 as he recovers from his Achilles injury. Nick, how will Kyrie fit in Brooklyn?
If he does the right things, he'll fit in great. He's a great player. He's better than D'Angelo Russell. He fills a need. There's a young team on the ascent. They got a great front office. They have a very good young coach. They have a great arena. They have excellent fans. I know the national media make it seem like that everyone that lives in New York is a Knick fan. Maybe everyone over 50 in New York is a Knick fan. But young people like the Nets. Barclays Center, you go there all the time. I go there as often as I can. It's as live as Madison Square Garden. And it's people rooting for the home team as opposed to people coming to see the opposing team. Yeah. And so, Kyrie has what he's always wanted. He's getting to play at home on a team that at least for a year he will be the unquestioned star of, and then in a year he'll have a superstar with him, but it's someone that he is more organically close to than he was LeBron James. The concerns are, did he learn from the mistakes of last year? And I'm going to mention something we haven't talked about yet on today's show. How much of wanting to play in New York was home, and how much of it is the nightlife? That is part of the conversation with Kyrie Irving. I do not begrudge him that. He is young, he is rich, he is single, he's famous. He's able to enjoy himself. But one of the reasons certain teams that I think Colin reported that the Clippers were a little queasy on Kyrie Irving. You reported the Knicks were a little queasy on Kyrie Irving. Is how much is Kyrie going to take care of himself throughout the entire year, not just the basketball season, throughout the entire year, to make sure he's in the best basketball shape mentally and physically possible? That is going to, Boston, people can love the city of Boston. The Boston nightlife is not New York City, and it does not have the attractiveness that New York City does. And it certainly Cleveland didn't. And so this is going to be the first time in his career where his home games, the partying is a viable option after those home games in Brooklyn. Is he able to stay away from that? And those are the concerns. If he's able to learn from his mistakes and be the true professional he needs to be, this will work out great. They will be a little bit better than last year, and then they will come in a season from now as the favorites in the East when Kevin Durant gets there. But there are pitfalls. There are possible potholes he could fall into, and those are the ones that I'm concerned about.
Yeah, I wouldn't try to compare situations as far as Cleveland being drafted. You got no choice. Forced his way out of Cleveland into Boston, he had no choice. And when you go into those situations, regardless, when he was the first pick, there's a lot of agendas on that team in Cleveland. They didn't matter because he was such a high pick. It's a matter, we got to groom this kid to be special. And they did that until LeBron came. That's when their objectives changed. When you go to Boston, in that trade, Danny Ainge traded for him, but he missed because he couldn't calculate the people he was putting Kyrie with, whose agenda would win out. And you had all these players with their own agenda. And their success on the court the year without Kyrie Irving even created more agendas because it made Jaylen Brown think that he was more of a scorer and he needed more minutes. It made Tatum think that I'm going to work out with Kobe. I'm the next Kobe. Rozier, I need a contract. So you have a lot of things. Gordon Hayward, I'm coming back from injury. I'm trying to salvage my career to a guy that recruited me from high school who's given me more than the benefit of the doubt. So Kyrie Irving in that situation, how do you lead when he's trying to lead? And he, to me, learned from the situation. He called LeBron. And to me, I believe he learned a lot because LeBron was able to tell him, but he wouldn't have learned unless he was in that situation. So I expect him to be improved. He played some of the best basketball on the court, and that's what I'm going to be concerned about. I think we judge too many great athletes on are they a good leader, and that has nothing to do with their skill set. Their skill set has been developed. Leadership is a rare quality. We expect jump shots, pitching, throwing a football, catching a football, running the football. We expect those guys to be leaders, and that expectation is not realistic, and we should stop doing that to the elite, expecting them to be elite leaders.
And the reason he got criticized for not being a good leader with Boston last year was because seemingly he left the commensurate leader in LeBron James to be a leader and then was not equipped to do it or found out he wasn't equipped to do it. But the point you're making about great player in one bucket, leader in another, how many Hall of Famers you play with in your career? Is it 7 or 8? 8? I'm not going to ask you to name names here. Of those 8, how many were great leaders individually?
I would say individually, really only one was a great leader, and that was Warren Moon.
Okay.
The rest of us, we had to learn. Myself, Randy Moss, Randall McDaniel, John Randall, Chris Doman,
He is naming names.
Reggie White. Like, man, we had to learn.
And those are Hall of Famers.
Reggie White and Warren Moon are the only natural-born true leaders every single day.
And then the question becomes how many leaders are also great players?
Right.
Because there just aren't that many that if you're such a great... Generally, the best player on the team is the leader, or the leader is the best player on the team.
That's the
That's
ideal.
what people wish.
That's what I'm saying. It seems to be.
Just on the Nets last year, you know who the players would say was one of their best leaders? Jared Dudley. He averaged 5 points a game. So, like, sometimes it is the...
But that's not the norm. But I understand what you're saying.
I don't know if it's not the ideal. I don't know. I think we act like it's not the norm, but I don't know if it's the ideal. With the Houston Rockets, I don't know if they've said that James Harden is the best leader on that team, and maybe that's one of the reasons they haven't achieved their fullest of potential.
I have not seen it. I have not seen where the leader typically is the best player. Now, he might be the driving force. He might work the hardest. He might get there the earliest. But as far as being the greatest leader there, no. I was with Michael Jordan. There were times Michael Jordan was not a great leader, but was he there early? Was he there late? Yeah. Was he the greatest player I've ever seen? Yes. But great leadership, questionable. So I disagree totally with you on that fact. I've been in too many locker rooms, seen too many quality guys who I knew maybe they could lead 4 or 5 guys, but they couldn't lead a group of guys.
The dynasty we just watched, the leaders arguably were Draymond and Iggy. They were never the best players on the team. So I just think Kyrie did ask for it, though. He had to be the leader on Boston because they were all so young, and Horford was going to do it quietly. We'll see how he does it in Brooklyn next season.
Moving on to the Sixers now.
In the cars and
right.
got 3 on courtside.
They're all in on Ben Simmons despite his slight lack of shooting from long distance. Ben Simmons will reportedly sign a 5-year, $170 million max deal to stay in Philadelphia. Simmons has long been pegged as the franchise's savior alongside Joel Embiid, but some have their doubts. Sarah, good or bad idea to max out Ben Simmons?
I think it is a good idea. I think the future for Philadelphia is Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid, and there is no one that knows better what he is going to turn into, the confidence that they have that he will develop a jump shot, then Philadelphia should have. They watch him every day. They see what he can do. I'm not certain that he necessarily will, but he is so dominant in every other aspect of the game that the hope will be that will come. And if it does come, then he's going to be a true force in the league. And so I think this is a move that they needed to make.
All right, let's talk about shooting for a moment, because we look around the table, we got 3 legitimate athletes on the table. Jenna's a workout queen, but not a basketball player. Cris does play some basketball, but he's known to throw elbows, break people's noses, get you down on the block. You're the shooter at the table. So how does Ben Simmons go from a guy who last year was 2 of 25 on shots 16 plus feet from the basket? And I don't know what's worse on that number, the 2 or the only 25 attempts.
The whole year?
The whole year. 2 of 25
whole year.
To a guy who is just comfortable taking a few free throw line jump shots.
I think what you stated, the most important thing, and Jenna, that's why your eyes popped out, the 25 attempts. How do you make shots? You've got to take shots. And shooting is so much about confidence. I have watched Ben Simmons shoot. His stroke does not. There are some guys that have janky jump shots, and you watch the form, the follow through, everything about how they shoot, and you can tell why the ball doesn't go in. And when you watch Ben Simmons, to me, it looks like a shot that he has developed, and it's all about repetition, consistency, practice. But it's very different sitting in a gym and practicing and taking shots as opposed to playing in game action and at game speed. And the thing that I've always questioned about Ben Simmons is that he's not actually even taking those shots. And so at some point, whether it's an ego thing, whether it's a confidence thing, whatever it is, heading into the season, you need to put that aside and tell Ben Simmons, I need you to take X number of shots from a certain distance every game. I don't care if you airball them. I don't care what happens. We need you to do this every single game. And to me, that's the only way he'll get over that hump.
It's about repetition. You Google, how do you become an expert at any one thing? It will tell you to take at least 10,000 reps. That's if you had everything in order. That means the right fundamentals and everything else. I don't like his shot. I don't believe he's got the right fundamentals. But he can be. In golf, we have a guy named Jim Furyk, who's going on to be one of the great golfers we've seen. He has the most unorthodox swing. So it will not take him 10,000 swings to be able to hit the ball like Tiger Woods or Jack Nicklaus. It takes more swings than that. So he does not have a routine. When you watch the NBA playoffs, one of the things I love, not only the competition, what was the footage we got of the greatest players in the world, what their routine was before the game. I have been to enough games. I know Ben does not have a routine. Why do we have video of him running off the court like a child? Because we don't have a routine. We don't have video of him doing things like LeBron James. That's LeBron James's routine. We saw Kawhi start about 3 feet from the bucket, left hand, right hand, 6 feet, 9 feet, 12 feet, and then go around the arc game after game. We saw Kevin Durant coming back from a strained calf, spinning around on one leg, propelling himself, shooting. He doesn't do those things. So for us sitting out here and the idiots who are doing TV that think he's going to get a jump shot, because that is the challenge everybody has had since transitioning from college. Every player, not just Steph Curry, Michael Jordan, Moses Malone, LeBron James, every single one. Ben Simmons is in the 1 percentile of those players who has not gotten that. And it will not come without an extensive routine and some embarrassment and many, many, many hours in private that he can eventually take to the public.
With all that said, of course you max him out. If he never develops the jump shot, then Philly has a ceiling. Then he's got to be your 3rd best player, and to Cris' point, he might have to change positions. But he has still shown you his value without the jump shot, playmaking, rebounding, defending, size, all those things. If we take the draft class before his draft class, the 2 draft classes after, there's only guys you would rather have than Ben Simmons. Of those 4 draft classes, Karl-Anthony Towns, Donovan Mitchell, Luka Doncic. Those are the 3 that are no-brainers. Maybe De'Aaron Fox, maybe D'Angelo Russell, maybe Jason Tatum. If you redid his draft He goes number 1, again, knowing what we know. But this is Philadelphia to a degree, betting on the come, betting that he is going to improve because they are locked into Embiid, Simmons, Tobias. That is their team moving forward, and they think, and obviously Al Horford as well for the next 4 years, they think that's good enough to win a championship. He has to be better offensively for that to be a reality.
Well, and he has to, what's the big question now for us with Philadelphia? We saw in the postseason, who was their closer? Who was the guy that had the ball in his hands at the end of the game?
He's not there anymore.
It was Jimmy Butler. He's not there. So when you look at Philadelphia's roster, when you look at their lineup and you see how good they can be, the question is who's going to have the ball in their hands at the end of the game? And it should be Ben Simmons. He shouldn't be in that dunker spot at the end of a game.
No, Ben Simmons can't. I respect your basketball, but Ben Simmons can't be the guy at the end of the game. The reason why? Because you don't have to guard him beyond 10 feet. But that's what it showed in the playoffs.
It did. But that to me is where his game, you've got to develop that at some point, because if not, if a team doesn't need to guard you at the end of the game, then how is he a player that's
This is what I believe the question is, because I don't believe Ben, his jump shot will be a problem. But I believe the coach is a problem because the coach is an asset of Ben's. And I don't believe he's going to force him to playing in a position that he's uncomfortable, and that's away from the bucket. To me, they should change his position. Ever since they've announced him as the number 1 pick, they've always said he's a point guard. No, he's not no point guard. Not no real good one. He don't have the skill set. Now, he is a big guy who can dribble and is athletic and can make some plays. But when did that make someone a point guard? When you can't shoot beyond 5 feet, what is he? A 6'10" version of Rondo? Rondo can shoot better than him. And for the first pick,
and is willing to.
I mean, so come on now. I mean,
But that could be Josh Richardson
I don't
now
think
they
the
pick
question
up,
was, oh, is this a smart move? This was the only move that they have, was to be able to sign him. They didn't have no choice.
I want to make sure I understand what you're saying. What you're saying is for Philadelphia to reach their full potential, he's got to take on the role that Butler had. But the only way he can take on that role is if he improves on the things you're talking
his jump
about.
Shot. And that's something that, and I do think it helps that they have Josh Richardson to come play point guard. And not that he doesn't have to be the point guard. I'm with you on the questionable position. He's got to be a player, though, that you feel comfortable putting the ball in his hands at the end of the game.
But he, at the very least...
And that's going to take the development of a shot, which is the question.
And which is more than, it takes longer than an offseason to do that.
Absolutely. And at the very least, without the Defensive Player of the Year level defense, but still very good defense, he should be a rich man's Draymond Green. And Draymond will take the open threes. He's not, I mean, he took 25 shots, Ben Simmons, outside of 16 feet. That's impossible. I want to see what Boban did. Like, honestly, Boban, who was his teammate, Boban all of a sudden had a nice little feathery 10-footer. Ben won't even do that. So that is, I baked into it. Between year 1 and year 2, he's going to come back with more of a jump shot.
Which was year wrong. 2, 3, really.
I understand, but between when we first saw him in the NBA last year, I was wrong.
Right.
He's got to come back with something next season.
Back here with Sarah Kustok talking where Kawhi Leonard will play next season. Lakers and Clippers are front runners out west. They've both completed their meetings with Kawhi. Now the Raptors will reportedly get their chance to do the same. So which team has the edge? Cris Carter had the inside track yesterday. He tweeted this: Kawhi update. I've just been informed Kawhi has not made a decision, and to think the Lakers are ahead of the Clippers or the Raptors would be wrong. Sarah, what do you think the best option for Kawhi Leonard is if you're choosing between the Lakers, the Raptors, or the Clippers?
I think looking at these 3 teams, there's not a bad option. So to me, and this is probably not the answer that you want, whatever Kawhi wants to do. Because you could look at Toronto and staying in Toronto. They won a title. They would be one of the title favorites heading into next season if he does, in fact, decide to stay.
Run it back.
He's got a great comfort with the medical staff, which is very important to him. He seemed to have a good fit with the organization, but does he want to be in Toronto? And that's a question that only Kawhi can answer. He's from Southern California. It has been well documented that he had wanted to go back home and play at home. So you've got 2 teams that you look at the Lakers roster. You can play alongside 2 of the best players in the NBA. They would be an absolute force watching how they would all fit together. And then you've got the Clippers, who did an extraordinary job in really gritting through last year and made a nice push in the postseason against the Golden State Warriors. You've got stability, an excellent coach in Doc Rivers. You got it run in terms of front office and the mind of Jerry West. You got a billionaire owner who's willing to do anything for the team to help them to win. So I think it's more about, what does Kawhi want? Where does he want to be? What organization does he want to be with? I don't think there was a bad choice. And see, I know you've been connected with this process. I don't think anyone totally understands what Kawhi is thinking at this point, but I can understand why it's taking so long, because he wants to look through everything. He wants to meet with the teams. He wants to hear what they have to say. So a lot of it just comes down to what matters most to Kawhi, because I think all of these options would be excellent for him.
Let me give you the things that Kawhi is looking for, not in this order. Number one, he's looking for a staff, from a medical coaching staff, that is willing to work with the doctors that he personally has, compared to what people thought it was just the medical staff in Toronto. And he does have that with all three of these teams. He'd like to be able to play close to where he grew up. That was his original request. So you have that in two of the three teams. He wants more NBA championships. He wants to continue to get better. So in all these situations, which ones are best? Toronto, short term, they might have a window that might be open for a year or two. But where the decisive advantage to all these things is LeBron James and Anthony Davis, what they can do with Kawhi Leonard, with his skill set. Because people are like, Kawhi doesn't need the ball. But we have seen he's become a great one-on-one basketball player. Anthony Davis, he doesn't need the ball, but he's great in the pick and roll. He can go off the bounce. He's a great one-on-one offensive player. And at some point, LeBron James, this is year number 17. At some point, LeBron needs 5 to 8 minutes where he can go sit in the corner, where LeBron can be the picker in a pick and roll. He could pop. Maybe he could play the 4 spot. Like, there's so many options that the Lakers present that the other ones can't match. In Canada, he's got a tax problem. He's got a cold weather problem, and he's got a longevity. How long will that window stay open there as far as with the players that they have on the roster? So it's a very, very tough decision, but those are the things that Kawhi and his team have expressed to me are very, very important as far as the next move of his career.
On the screen it says, would Kawhi be making a mistake not signing with the Lakers? I don't think there's a mistake to be made here. I think that, to your point, they're all good options. But I think the other reason this decision has not yet been made, it's not because Kawhi loves the attention and wants to draw out the process. It's because none of these teams check every box. The Raptors check all the boxes: basketball, management, at least short-term basketball, a ability to win, a loving fan base, but they are a 0 out of 10 on location. Right? Like, I mean, and by the way, city of Toronto is a gorgeous city, an international city. But it is cold. The taxes in Canada is a real thing, and it's not in America.
Just some basic things. When you go to watch the news in Canada, you're not watching U.S. news.
Yeah.
You're not staying up with the current events that Kawhi's been watching for the last 27, 28 years of his life.
When I'm in my hotel in Toronto, I can't get your show.
Well, therein lies the biggest problem.
It is a 0. If we're just making a list, it's a 0 out of 10.
Go through the
For
rest.
the Clippers, with respect to Gallinari and Trez and Lou Williams and Patrick Beverley, all nice players, the Clippers next year would be the least talented roster Kawhi's ever played on by far. He came from the Spurs.
Yes.
The Spurs, that organization, came up with Duncan and Parker and Ginobili. And I know it went sour, but they were always really good teams. So the Clippers, it's a talent. How close are we to winning a title? And with the Lakers, it's all the nonsense we were talking about with them up until they traded for Anthony Davis. It is the coaching search gone awry. It is Magic saying Rob Pelinka's a backstabber and now having to be like, nah, but it's all good now.
And Magic is a person who they looked up to. How does that get repaired?
Right.
Because Kawhi saw and heard all that afterwards. He wasn't following it blow by blow, but it was time to make a decision which team you want to go to. That information was presented to him.
So none of these options are perfect options. And so to me, tie goes to Anthony Davis. This is, bless you, this is the reason I say Anthony Davis instead of LeBron is I believe LeBron wants to play past his current contract. I believe LeBron wants to keep the door open. I don't want to talk about it much on this show, but I have good reason to believe he wants to at least keep the door ajar to maybe one day playing in an NBA game on the same court as his son. That means he's got to play 5 more years minimum. So I think LeBron's going to be there for a while, but how much longer is LeBron going to be league MVP caliber, best player in the league caliber player? Anthony Davis is going to be that for a decade. So Kawhi and Anthony Davis could team up and be the best duo the NBA has until this time next decade. And to do it in this, where did he originally demand to be traded to or asked to be traded to?
Los Angeles Lakers.
To do it for that team. So I think the Lakers make the most sense, but it's clearly not a done deal, and it's on the board. We're doing this again next year. It's on the board. He signs a 1+1 in Toronto, tries to repeat, and then goes and sees next year when a lot of teams will have cap space, but there's not a big free agency class, and I don't think we're going to find out. Well, we're not going to find out until maybe Cris lets us know, but I don't think he knows yet either.
Thank you for listening to the First Things First podcast. Remember, leave us a review and tell us what you think. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and catch us on FS1 Monday through Friday, 6:30 a.m. Eastern. For Cris Carter and Nick Wright, I'm Jenna Wolfe. So long, everybody.